the people who are most affected by these apocalyptic communities and apocalyptic teachings are the individuals who have the most faith in the community. It's the irony is that you had all of these faith healers, these prophets who would blame individuals for not having enough faith when you don't get healed or when these things don't come true. But in reality, those who do have the most faith are the ones left holding the ticket. Like, think of it this way: if me and, let's say, my sisters get a call from my dad, and he says, "Hey, we're all leaving. We're moving. God has called us to move, and da 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 da, and we're gonna move today. Get your stuff packed up. Get ready." And I pack up all my stuff, and my sisters are like, "Nah, it's not really that big. Eventually we're going to move. God has said some of these things." And I'm like, "No, am taking it seriously. I saw what my father said. He said, pack up. I have it. I'm there. I'm waiting at the bus station, and days go by and he's never there and we never move." It's the person who believed it. It's the person who packed up their things, who waited at the bus station, who suffers the most from these apocalyptic communities. And what's really frustrating, even now, is that when I've spoken out against my father and I've spoken out against International House of Prayer, I've had some really personal attacks against me, which largely don't bother me that much. When it's individuals I grew up with, it does a little bit more. Like, if I knew you and you saw me, like, I believed I went to the bus station because you said so, and you saw that I did go to the bus station. Like, so for people who don't know me very well, they don't know that I was a kid who was really trying to do all of these things, who really believed it, who was fasting. Like, as a 14-year-old, I went on like a 12-day fast, and that is not good for the constitution of a 14-year-old. Like, that's not healthy. And I've had, like, even when I grew up and when I went from high school into college, like, I didn't go to a conventional college because I still had this sort of ticking time bomb idea that the end times were near and I needed to do missions work. And so I went to YWAM. And I mean, my entire life was affected because I believed these individuals. And now I'm speaking up against these individuals, and people were being like, "You were never a part of the community." If I was never a part of the community, I would have never suffered like I did. The whole point that this is hard for me is because I believed Mike Bickle when he said that his brother was going to walk again. One of the core prophecies was about Pat Bickle, Mike Bickle's brother. And I can tell this story in more detail if you like, but Pat Bickle was a paraplegic, and I mean, before I was born, he was in a wheelchair, and I grew up, I would go to the church services, and I would see this man who was in a wheelchair, and I mean, not just like a full body wheelchair. He would lay out, and it was very visceral memory for me. And that was one of the core prophecies, is that revival was going to come to Kansas City. The Chiefs were going to win the Super Bowl, and Pat Bickle was going to walk again. And I believed all of those things just as much as I believed that Jesus was raised from the dead, just as much as that Moses parted the seas, that Noah, 40 days and 40 nights, Noah was out on the ark in the water. And like all the stories, I believed them all. And then Pat Bickle died, and the Chiefs won the Super Bowl, which is great. But the Chiefs won the Super Bowl, but there was no revival. The end times didn't come. And I was left at the bus station, just kind of sitting, waiting there. And even going into high school, like going into college, I remember there was a friend of mine who she went to she went to a college and studied accounting. And I remember being like 18, and she was in my same like grade. And I remember thinking, what a silly thing to do. The world is going to end and you're studying accounting. And which was a horribly egotistical thing for me to think. And I regret that I did it. But, you know, that was just this sort of such a condescending thought. And now she's got probably a great job, and I don't actually know what she's doing with it. But, you know, that was just my mentality, is that I was like, why would you get an accounting degree when the Lord is going to split the sky and we're getting, you know, what a ridiculous way to spend your 10, 20 years before Jesus comes back. And that affected me. And I think that that's really difficult to pinpoint and hold people accountable for. Like, I can go into the IHOP community and say, hey, you guys wronged me because all of these prophecies didn't come true. No one would listen to me. No one would care about that because they've moved on. There's new prophecies to replace the old ones. There's new promises that, you know, there's new carrots at the end of the stick. And now there's just other people having the same process that I did. There's other young children who are either being raised there or, you know, coming as 16, 17, 18-year-olds who are getting drawn into this community, who are given the same type of promises that I was given. And 10, 15, 20, 30 years down the road, they're going to be like, oh, none of that was true. But they would have, you know, I don't want to say wasted 10 years of their life waiting for it, but it certainly is, you know, it's like a marriage that you give everything to something and realize that it was all for naught.